Good morning, I think, Tanya. I'm just testing my mic. Thanks.
Fine, Karen. You're clear. You can just tilt your screen just a little bit forward. Yeah.
Hard because if I ever get my head or I get it's okay.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
I'm going to turn off my screen anyway because Kathleen is going to be flighting documents.
All right. Okay.
Thanks.
That's fine. That's perfect.
Can
All right.
you make me a can you okay, yeah,
I've
okay.
already done it. And so if you can just do the admission so long.
I'll do that for
Um,
now, yeah.
okay. And
Yeah,
Karen,
yes.
do you want me to send you a parliamentary background quickly?
No, I don't know how to do that in any event, so I'm not gonna
Okay. Don't
do
worry.
that.
I'll
Basic.
teach you at some point.
Sure. If
Okay.
you could just record the meeting when you can.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
do so. Okay.
Okay, bye.
Recording in progress. Recording stopped.
Thanks, Katlego. Hi, could you possibly just put up the annexure on definitions and terminology? I mean, just put it on the screen and then you can take it off again. I just want to make sure that it's the right one. Thanks. That's perfect. That's great. So we can just wait for the chair to join and then put the agenda up and then probably go straight to this when we get there, go straight to this document rather than the other one. Yeah, thanks.
Good morning, honorable members.
Recording in progress.
Good morning, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. It's 9 o'clock sharp, 1 minute past 9. I will request that sometimes I'll have to switch off my video for better connectivity. So, honorable members, this is the meeting, a continuation of the meeting that we had on Wednesday, just to finalize the items that were left off as we were rushing to the city. Hopefully our meeting will not take very, very long, because some of the issues we have touched on them. Then I want to welcome you all, and also to say that your participation is always welcome. Your inputs are very valuable to this meeting. So, honorable members, here's the agenda. I can, from my side, confirm that these are the items that were left off on Wednesday. So can we then have a moment of silent prayer in remembering all those who passed on, including our leaders, our current serving member of the National Assembly, Princess Buthelezi, who will be laid to rest tomorrow. Let's observe a moment of silence, honorable members. Thank you very much. May their soul rest in peace. Honorable members, the real reason we are having this meeting today is also to allow the NA table to draft a report which will be sent to the Speaker in preparation for the Rules Committee meeting. So that is why we must finish everything today, so that by next week they will be busy drafting and correcting and doing all what they are supposed to do. Honorable members, are there apologies? Even though we all know that our meeting doesn't require a quorum, even if it's 3 or 2 people, we can proceed with the meeting. But I have seen that the invitation was sent to all of us, sent to our emails. Honorable members, are there apologies? I have one.
Okay.
I have one from Honorable Suweya, the parliamentary councillor to the deputy president. Mr. Handik, Perrin?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. No, we haven't received any from the table side. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. If we can now proceed to the recusal or withdrawal of members. I think Mr. Tasso on this one, he made that presentation in the meeting last week. Or do we want him to go back and remind us of what he was presenting, which is in the documents as well?
Yes, good morning, ma'am, and good morning, honorable members. I think Perrin will just indicate how far we went with the discussion. I would just like to indicate, ma'am, that our intention, at least our proposal, is that the matter should not necessarily be finalized today, because we think that the ethics committee will need to be consulted at some point. So it's not the intention that the next rules committee must finalize it, but maybe the one coming after the next one would finalize it. But I think it's important that we get all the inputs in this committee, which we did the other day. So, Perrin, if you could indicate how far we went, and then with your permission, ma'am, we'll proceed to the next item. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Mr. Tasso, for clarifying that. Indeed, we cannot finalize some matters where there's a need for further consultation. We'll just put put forward our inputs, then it will be deferred to another meeting of the Rules Committee after consultation. Perrin, can you please take us through?
Thank you, Chair. Good morning again to yourself and members. So yes, so we did present the proposals. We gave an overview on Tuesday, or was it Wednesday? Tuesday, and then members did
It's
express.
Wednesday, Perrin. It's Wednesday.
Was it Wednesday?
Yes.
The members did express themselves on and raise some of concerns and issues that they had with the proposals. So based on that, and we should say that our proposals were very much a first attempt based on some of the legal principles that we were looking into. So we would propose that based on the issues that were expressed, that the subcommittee convey the drafts as well as the concerns raised to the ethics committee for them to advise on how these drafts would impact, if at all, on the code of ethics, and how the whole regime of ethics, including the recusal of members, must be aligned. So we think that we are ready to convey that to the ethics committee, and then for them to make a submission probably to the rules committee, not next week, but at the following meeting. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Perrin. Honorable members, are there takers on this? Do we agree with the proposal that the table is making?
Chair.
Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks very much, and good morning to the rest of colleagues. I'm hoping that, or at least get some confirmation that our comments on Wednesday were taken into consideration regarding this item, or at least, and if they could say, the table staff, would it be helpful if we wrote them something on the basis of what our input was, or will they be able to cover it? Thank you. Because we already contributed on this one on Wednesday ourselves.
Okay. Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlozi. Let me check. Honorable Manyi.
Good morning, Chair, and good morning, honorable members. I'm just wondering, in fact, based on the input that the Honorable Ndlozi made last time we met, that in particular, he made an example of one member. I'm not going to mention names, but let's just say one member, whatever reason, is ruled to be removed from the House. What that means in terms of representation of that constituency, whether in fact we should even entertain any nuance of a removal of anyone. Rather, if there is a matter like that, as opposed to physical renewal that we propose as a subcommittee, that should a situation that warrants renewal arise, instead of removing the person, rather that person is declared as person that is not going to speak, but at least the person can still be in the House and take notes of whatever, but will not be allowed to participate. Is that not much more for a less emotional approach than to just physically remove? It just sounds barbaric, actually, to remove people because they disagree with you. Surely you can make a ruling that your opportunity to speak because of this and that is finished. Rather, I think that is a much better pill to swallow than to be ejecting people.
Thank you very much, Honorable Manyi. Honorable Ghana, I'll try to summarize and respond to what you are saying, Honorable Manyi. Honorable Ghana.
Thanks very much, Chair, and good morning, colleagues. So insofar as I think maybe Honorable Manyi might be mixing up the removal from the chamber vis-a-vis the disqualification for participating in certain deliberations where there's a conflict of interest. I think I do agree in terms of the direction that the table is advising for taking this matter into ethics, because the ethics committee to then deliberate and maybe look at the code, because if you kind of think of it, it sits more in the code of ethics, and that's where it needs to be made. And if I recall correctly, Honorable Ndlozi had made the point around political conflict. I don't know, maybe the ethics committee must deliberate on this, on all sorts of conflicts, and what then, as members of parliament, which if there's any kind of conflict, what is the best way to then handle that? But ordinarily, you will not want someone that has got an interest on an issue participate, not even sit there and listen. They should not be listening or participating. They should be outside. It's a normal practice in many areas. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ghana. Honorable Makubela.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chair, I'm supporting the proposal made by the table staff that it should, this matter of conflict of interest should be ventilated more at the Committee of Ethics, so that we do not just measure conflict haphazardly at this time, but ventilate it more and be able to drill it down to, so that we ensure that we don't prejudice members based on interest that are not there, whether political interest or family interest or financial interest. But let us take this matter further to the Ethics Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, honorable members. The easiest summary that I can give is that indeed all concerns will be then conveyed to the Ethics Committee, as the table staff has advised. So can we now step off to this item and move on to the next one, which is the definitions and terminology in the rules. Mr. Klaso and Perrin.
Thank you, ma'am. Perrin will lead this one. Yeah.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chairperson. Yes. So you'll see a document there on screen, which is, I think,
Deputy Chief Whip, my sincere apologies for disrupting. I wanted to check what was the resolution insofar as the referral on the supplementary list of members, because I think that's where the meeting ended before there was a conversation. Are we taking that on? Are we giving it to another portfolio, or what was the sense? Because we did not deal with that particular issue, unless if it's coming down the agenda. I just wanted to make sure that we conclude 5 and 6 before we go to 7, because I don't remember us taking a decision or maybe a recommendation in that respect.
Honorable Ghana, if I may remind you, the table will also assist us in this regard. That matter was concluded as to all members who will be coming after the swearing in of other members. They must be published for the public to comment on whether they are suitable or they are not, whether the public will have to object or not to object. It is a process that is done with all of us. It was done like that. Our names were published before we were sworn into Parliament. But Mr. Klaso, can you please come in on that one?
Thank you, Chairperson. It certainly is our understanding that it was agreed that we would publish the names of the members coming in the ATC and the website, and would allow a period of 10 days from the date of publication to the swearing in of the members. And secondly, that the party signatory will confirm in writing that these members meet the membership requirements as prescribed in the Constitution. That's the essence of what we proposed, ma'am. And our impression was that members were in support of that direction. Thank you.
That's my understanding as well, Mr. Tasso, that we have dealt
Thank
with
you.
this. There's nothing more to add on what it's a process that must be followed. Thank you very much. Can we now move on to parent
Sorry, Chair.
number 7? Parent.
Hey, I'm sorry, Chairperson. I'm not. I kept trying to raise a hand, but can I say something on this matter?
Yes, you can, Honorable Ndlozi, so that we can move on.
Yeah. Also, so you know, the original published names do get published during the elections and all of that. So this idea of the new names is on the condition that it was not on the original list that went through that scrutiny of the public. Can you just make that clear, that it's not like every time, regardless of whether the name had been initially already published? I'm just trying to say, like, let's make a distinction, because parties submit about 200 names before the elections, which go through that process of public disputations and all of that. Thanks.
Mr. Tasso?
Yeah, Chair, yes, the idea is that members who did not go through that process, the pre-publication, should be published. That's the first thing. But it does happen that when the supplementary list come in, there could be new members, and there could be members who were part of the original list, but they were far down in the list, and they didn't make it at the time. So the sense I'm getting from Honorable Ndlozi is that maybe the list should be confined to only new names. And of course we can work on that. But the idea was that if you get a list of 10 names, and 8 of them had not gone through the system pre-election, and 2 had, you would simply just publish the whole list. But we are happy to consider the point made by Honorable Ndlozi. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mr. Tasso. Honorable Ghana, we really need to move on this one.
Yeah, I just want to...
The point that Honorable Ndlozi raised is a valid one, because we really do have parties and publish a long list of names. But what is bringing in also assists the process to say that, but these other names up to 100 or up to 200 were published by the political party. Then let's look, if the names were not there, it's completely new name for that particular individual. You may comment, Honorable Ghana.
It's a one-line addition, Mr. Kaso, that on the point of a party representative making a declaration, that if that declaration it's found to be, or let's say someone has said that I don't have a criminal record, whilst I do. So if ordinarily, according to the Constitution, I will not qualify as a member, that if it's found, then we also, do the work that ordinarily the IEC will get to do in a case that maybe there was wrongful disclosures from the party representative. Just to put in a bit of work so that there's a little process and we don't end up with people that shouldn't be in Parliament ending up in Parliament. Thank you very much. That was it, Deputy Chief Whip.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ghana, for your input, and also to Mr. Tasso.
My apologies, ma'am. Somehow I'm not able to raise my hand here. Yes, no, we would certainly consider that as well, because in the event that a member, and I hope it never happens, deliberately misleads Parliament or the National Assembly, then there will be room for your structure such as the ethics committee and others to work on that. But the point that we also wanted to make, Honorable Ndlozi, to your suggestion, I did say that we would consider it, but there may be one limitation because the law says that the supplementary list must be published in the Gazette. So the law does not distinguish between new names and old names. So we may be constrained in that sense to publish the whole list as is, as we would publish it in the Gazette. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Tasso. Honorable Manye.
Chairperson, I think the intention here is to create equity so that the dispensation that applied with the original people is similarly applied. Now, the issue I have now, just thinking about it, is that in the original list, the signatory does not have the obligation that is now being put to the signatory from the party in terms of the new names. Why is that the case? I mean, if we are saying that these people must go through the same rigor, no problem with that. But then the same rules must apply. If in the original list there was no affidavit from whoever submitted the names that this is what it is, why should there be an affidavit now? It's not making sense to me. Surely IEC must do what it must do as a signatory. I don't have the wherewithal to be going through checking people's criminal records and anything else and all of that. That's why we have the IEC. The IEC can, if anybody objects because they know something that I don't even know, then the IEC will do what it has done with President Zuma, for instance. Then that was that, you know. So why is that now the burden of the whoever submitted names? I don't think that's correct. The same rigor that applied must then apply. So why there? I think that part must be removed because it's just unnecessary burden to someone who hasn't got the authority and the wherewithal. This is just an unnecessary bureaucracy.
Thank you very much, honorable members, for your inputs in these matters. You can also send your suggestion to the table not later than Monday next week of your suggestion that we need to take. But what we can assure this meeting of is that the legal route with these matters will be taken into account. If the law says this is what must be done, we cannot deviate from it. It will be done as such. So, Honorable Ndlozi, for the last time, I see you are coming back or you are covered now.
No, your current summary suffices. I don't think this matter will be closed in this next rules committee. So we'll have an opportunity to canvass it. I think
you can
I'm
make
fine.
also your suggestions
Absolutely.
as well, but there is no one who will deviate from what the law says. Thank you very much. Can we now move on to the next item on the definitions and terminology? Mr. Perrin, Andik?
Thank you, Chair. Yes. So members will see on the screen a brief that we prepared on the basis of research and the legal opinion. And this concerns the terms and concepts that are used in the rules presently. So members will, of course, be aware that the 7th Parliament has a unique composition insofar as no party has an absolute majority. And I will talk about the definition of majority in a minute. The government itself is also made up of a coalition involving a considerable number of parties. Now, the rules of Parliament and the National Assembly were not specifically developed for coalitions. And that is why the Rules Committee, after the election, met and there were submissions on these terms by the ANC, DA, and EFF at the time. And on the basis of those inputs, the Rules Committee and the House provided some guidance on the definitions of majority and minority, the opposition, the leader of the opposition, and the titles of party whips. But there was also a view that at the time that was really an interim measure and that further research was needed. And the intention is to provide rules and a rules regime that can provide for any electoral eventuality, because it's not ideal. It may sometimes be necessary, but it's not ideal to change the rules at the beginning of every parliament. So this paper is an attempt to take that discussion forward. As I said, it's on the basis of research and some legal advice that we were given. So as I mentioned, the brief talks about majority and minority parties, the opposition, and the status given to certain party functionaries being the whips. So, honourable members, perhaps the most difficult issue to define is that of a majority and a majority party. And this is in part because the Constitution does not in fact refer to a majority party. Instead, it only refers to minority parties. And that's in section, maybe I should just read it. Section 57 in the case of the NA, which says the rules and orders of the NA must provide for the participation in proceedings of the Assembly and its committees of minority parties represented in the Assembly in a manner consistent with democracy. So there's no definition in the Constitution of majority party. So when we looked at comparative parliaments, and especially parliaments with in the context of a parliamentary system where the executive is part of the legislature, we found that the majority term is used in at least two ways. There's a term called what they call the absolute majority, which means 50% plus one of a collective. In the case of the National Assembly, that would be 201 members of the 400. And what is called a relative majority, which is simply the largest number. In other words, a party can have a relative majority. It can have 40% of the total seats, and that is considered a majority, even though it doesn't have an absolute majority. Now, the latter definition, which is a relative majority, is a position that was, in fact, articulated by legal services when they had a look at applicable statute on the matter. So I think the legal opinion was circulated as well. But in their opinion, they draw attention to the Consolidated Rules for Political Office Bearers Pension Fund, which is part of the Pension Funds Act, which provides that in the case of trustees, majority party, and this is the definition in the rules, majority party means the party with the highest number of seats in the National Assembly, even if not more than 50% of the seats. So that is the definition that's used in the Consolidated Rules of Political Office Pension Fund. Now, my understanding is it's a regulation. I stand corrected, but it is not necessarily appearing in statute. So that is the
point of procedure.
Yes, Chair?
Sorry, Chairperson. I'm sorry, Handik. Herring.
Yes,
Yes.
Honorable Ndlozi.
I'm not sure what's happening now. I really need guidance because we approved the rules with regards to these definitions in the National Assembly in and around the second term, I think, which resulted in Umkhonto weSizwe Party becoming the official opposition. We are canvassing the same grounds. Why are we doing that? Because these are closed questions at this stage. It seems to me, I'm not sure what is Perrin doing. I'm sorry. I thought we were going to go straight to the specific rules that still have ambiguity and apply already adopted definitions, because these definitions were already adopted in the House, in the National Assembly. Am I missing something? Thank you.
If I may come in, Honorable Ndlozi. Of course, we dealt with the definitions. We came up with the issue of the largest party and the second largest party, then the opposition party. We dealt with the definitions, of course. But the issue of the majority party, we said this issue of majority needs to be further processed, if I remember well. Need to be further processed because there was no exact definition on it. Mr. Klaso, can you please clarify so that we don't waste time on this one? Clarify why did you bring it back?
Remember,
Thank you very much.
Indeed, there was a view that we needed to just do more work, but maybe we could be allowed to complete because our proposals are not changing what was agreed to.
Okay.
We're just bringing clarity, and I think what Paren was doing was to give some background of what we have found in trying to get more information on the matter. So, Chair, I just to appeal to members to allow us to complete the presentation because we really are not changing what was agreed to. Thank you.
Let's do so. Perrin, you may proceed. I'm not taking any hands now. We will discuss it after this. Perrin, you may.
Yes, thank you, Chair. No, just to very briefly respond to Dr. Ndlozi, we, as Mr. Castle said, we're not really changing anything that was agreed beforehand in terms of definitions, and some of the definitions, for example, the opposition, were clarified, and there's no longer any questions around what that means. Who's the opposition? Who is the leader of the opposition? But there was still some debate about how to understand a majority and what a majority party is. Now, there were views expressed in the Rules Committee previously, but there was no specific definition of majority party that was agreed at that time. But if I could just present, I won't have a very long presentation. So basically, what we're suggesting is that in the rules currently, where it refers to majority party, we replace that a reference with the largest party in the executive. In other words, you actually remove any ambiguity about what majority party means, because you actually you remove that concept from the rules. You have the largest party in the executive, and that will become a little bit more clear when we discuss party whips. I do want to also then say that the term majority party is not used in the Constitution, so therefore we could in fact avoid it. But the term minority party is used, as I've mentioned. So we do need a definition of minority parties, which is not actually in the rules presently. So our proposal is that minority party means any party other than the largest party in the executive. So all other parties are minority.
Could I ask the colleagues to move the document, please?
Yes, please. Just a little bit further up there. Those are the definitions that we're proposing on these two questions. The committee could also consider whether, if it is agreed that there is in fact no majority party, in other words, no absolute majority, and whether you don't, whether all parties, in fact, currently in the current situation, can in fact be considered minority parties. So again, moving away from the definition. The question of opposition, sorry, if you could move the presentation a bit further down. Again, the paper just provides some background both to the research and to what was discussed in the Rules Committee previously. But in short, we found no further issues with the way it was defined in the Rules Committee. So the opposition means any party other than a party in the executive. So a party can't be represented in the executive at all. And the leader of the opposition is the leader of the largest party that's in opposition. So those were the definitions that were agreed, and we think that can be proceeded with without any issue. Then in terms of party whips, so there was, again, in the report of the Rules Committee, there was a view that this needed to be looked at a bit more closely in lieu of the definition, especially of majority party. So again, maybe just quickly, the rules grant the chief whip, which is currently defined as the chief whip of the majority party, specific institutional functions. So they're responsible for both coordinating the work of their party, but also, in some extent, the business of the executive. So they perform somewhat a dual function. So again, if you look at the Chief Whip currently, he is the chair of the Chief Whips Forum. He also has an integral role in the programming of business every day. He approves the audit paper. So those are institutional functions. So we're basically saying that if you move away from the concept of majority, the Chief Whip is then defined as the Chief Whip of the largest party in the executive. And that is because of the somewhat of a dual function that the Chief Whip plays. So it can't be the chief whip of the largest party, because the largest party, in fact, in the House could theoretically, in fact, be in the opposition. I think that's the case in the KZN legislature at the moment. So the chief whip needs to have a role within the governing collective. So that's our definition on that score. We are also recommending that possibly, and this was on the basis of submissions, that the rules also recognize the chief whip of the second largest party. And that would have implications for structures like the program committee, and as well as remuneration issues. Provided that the second largest party is not in the opposition, or is not the largest opposition party. In which case, the leader of the second largest party would be the chief whip would be known as the chief whip of the largest opposition party. So currently, we obviously have that position, and that's another position that we're recommending actually be inserted into the definition of the rules, the chief whip of the largest opposition party, because again, the rules presently don't have a definition for that. So, Chair, that's in summary. As I said, some of these things have already been concluded, but there is still question marks in our view around specifically how the House wants to define majority party and whether, in fact, we can move away from that concept. Thank you. I don't know if Mr. Kasa would like to add. Thank you.
No, I'm good, Chair. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable. Thank you very much, Perrin. Of course, the presentation doesn't change anything from what was agreed upon in our previous meetings. So the floor is open to you, honorable members. Honorable Manye.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. Yeah, firstly, I think a posture that seeks to make rules that are going to last for 100 years is an incorrect posture. I think there must, and it's also almost like legislating laziness. I think every administration must deal with what the voters have said in that particular cycle. So therefore, there must be, on principle, state of readiness in terms of ensuring that the rules of the National Assembly align with what the voters have said in that voting period. So that's the first point. And I think if I look at some of the sections that have been read here that define the minorities and all of that, it's because that formulation is what it is, because implied in that formulation, I even think that even the non-mention of majority in the Constitution is because it's actually implied. You don't talk about minority. It's a head and tail. If you talk about minority, majority is implied. So to pretend that because it's not physically written there, therefore it's not there, I think it's disingenuous. So I think first thing is that the administration must be ready to change. And the issue of largest party is correct for this administration. The next administration, who knows, we might have a majority party. So we should not have a situation that rules out ever having majority party. That's the first thing I want to make. Second point I want to make, I'm struggling to understand in this current administration, why do we even have to have a chief whip of the second largest party? What purpose is that going to serve in this administration? Because we've got a coalition and there's a clearinghouse, they define or they agree all their things there and so on and so on. So why do you need a chief whip of the largest party, of the second largest party? Why do you even need that? What purpose is that going to serve? Lastly, if what we're doing here is not going to change anything, because like it's been already said here, that some of these things are signed, sealed, and delivered. What exactly are we doing here? What's the whole point? Why are we just being kept busy? We know that what we're doing here is not going to change anything. So what exactly? Why are we even doing it? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Manye. Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks, Chair. No, Castle is not fair with us in this. There shouldn't be proposals made on matters that the House has concluded, unless you're suggesting that we must change them. You couldn't say that you are proposing a definition of the opposition when that is already concluded. And I of course, with the guidance of the chairperson, I became patient, but that is not fair, comrades. These matters we canvassed and we concluded. We should have gone straight to that which had not been concluded, so that we are not repetitive. So here it seems to me the new thing we're supposed to be dealing with is minority party, because chief whip, largest party, opposition party, we have canvassed all that ground. Let's not recanvass those grounds, please, because I will now have to go fetch a resolution of the House. And in the explanation even by Perrin, there's no basis why we're being asked to again consider definition of chief whip. I'm sorry. I think these are matters that are close. So let me address this one of minority party. And I did go to the Constitution. When we submitted our document earlier, we had a much more, we had a substantial conversation, a substantial submission to the spirit of the Constitution. And that spirit, what we need to keep in mind is the Constitution envisages South Africa's democracy as a multi-party system of democratic government. And the insistence, the people who are older in the room, I don't know who could have been part of the conversations in 1994, would remember that the right wing was worried about the dominance of the ANC. And there were proposals to try and not have a situation in which this new democracy, which at the time was clear it was going to be a one-party dominant democracy. There were attempts to try and do the checks that nonetheless, it must allow and give life to however small other different political parties to participate. And so the entire dispensation of the rules, as well as the chapter on Parliament, tries to enforce, regardless of how dominant a political party may be, even if it may get 90%, you still need to make the rules and provisions that minority parties, and the specificity of that terminology of minority is also consistent, because it's strange in a South African democracy. You may possibly not find it anywhere else in the world. But it's consistent with the thinking of the time by the right-wing forces that were worried about the minorities. There was a whole big discussion, and this was de Klerk's passion at the time. But we must not outdo minorities. We're worried about minorities at the time were whites, but by extension they tried to, because they had fractured the South African community, the South African society in that way themselves. And now they were worried that this fracturing that they had introduced would result in white interests not being realized. They wanted to continue being white. So there were ideas of the white rights, the Indian rights, the colored rights, the African rights, and so on and so forth. So they were worried about minorities, that the majority being Black Africans, which according to them did not include colored people, Indian people, and white people, must not trump the minorities. It seems to me that is the spirit. I'm putting this political background for us to appreciate that, you know, it's about the letter and the spirit of the Constitution. And unfortunately, democracy by nature, by definition, is always already the rule of the majority. And that's a full stop, is the rule of the majority. Whoever is not part of the majority, of that majority that is ruling and arriving democratically, and if you think about the democratic decision, is universal suffrage in terms of section 1D, is that every single person votes, and then we determine, and that party rules in the interest of everyone, so to speak. So this question of minority is because of that background. So let us say now that 30 years later, we are seized with a situation in which there is no longer a one-party dominant political system, or we don't have that anymore. We truly have a multi-party democratic parliament now. So in my view, what that particular section, that particular insistence on minority parties, you can see even now in parliament, when we say minority parties and how we allocate whips and all of that, Castle, we're talking about numbers, we club about 9 political parties at the moment, if I'm not mistaken. I stand to be corrected. If it's more or less, we club them together because they are too small to have a whip. Because Ghana can whip the party leader. And then Patricia can't have a whip, she's alone. Delil, Honorable Patricia Delil. Some people, there's 3 of them, there's Nkwankwa and Holomesa, and so on and so forth. It's those small parties. We call those parties, at the moment when we say minority, we are trying to talk to those political parties, the small parties, whatever the case might be. Okay. I'm not persuaded at all, Chairperson, but I think for the purposes of the rules, so check what Perrin has proposed here. He says minority must mean any party that is not the majority. And then what is going to be, how would you say Mkondo Sizwe is minority? It's not minority. It's opposition. The DA is not minority. It's a big, it's like they've got 20%. That's not minority. I'm not persuaded. So maybe they'll come back and explain what is the need for its definition in the terms here, other than small parties, not minority, meaning parties that are not majority. It just means small parties. That's what it means.
Please
so that
wrap up,
we gather them and give them a whip. Thank you. Okay.
Please wrap up. Thank you very much.
I've wrapped up. Oh, thank you. I've wrapped up.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Honorable George Michalaikis.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Chairperson, firstly, with regards to the recognition of the Chief Whip, the second largest party, Chief Whip, and ultimately the opposition Chief Whip, I'm not going to go into that. The House has already adopted the resolution on that, and if the arguments around it is not understood, I don't think we're ever going to be able to land that argument with anyone who doesn't understand it by now. What I want to ask is that I understand from what Perrin presented is that it is referred to in the Constitution the minority party, and I just want to ask that what would the consequence
Maybe
be?
it's me, but I cannot hear anymore, Chairperson.
Can you hear me, Chair?
Honorable Ndlozi, yes, I can hear him. I don't know with other members. Can you hear Honorable Mikalakis?
Yeah, we can hear him. It was the
Can hear you,
honorable
Judge.
was left.
I can
Problem is
also
the-
hear you.
Thank you,
Yes.
thank you, Chair. I'm going to continue then. So the fact that the Constitution refers to minority party means that there is a need for this concept to be defined in the rules, and I would like to ask what the consequences would be. In my mind, well, I'm trying to phrase this. But currently, we are all technically minority parties because no one has an absolute majority if you want to define it in that way. But if we go that route, what would the consequences be in terms of how the Constitution refers to a minority party if the largest party in Parliament would be considered a minority party? I don't know if that makes sense, but is it a case where the Constitution gives certain opposition duties to the concept of minority party, or would it be possible in the context of the Constitution referring to that term that the largest party in Parliament can be considered a one of the minority parties without any constitutional problems? If it is a case where there will be constitutional problems referring to a party in government as a minority party, then I would support the proposal of making the concept of majority party one that doesn't necessarily refer to an absolute majority. But other than that, I do think that the definitions as proposed are quite useful. I think they're necessary. And I do think that they complement the resolution already taken by the House earlier this year. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mikalakis. Mr. Tasso, can you please respond to some of what the honorable members were asking?
Thank you, ma'am. I would just like our colleagues to take us to page 10 of the last report of the Rules Committee that was adopted by the House. Quickly, please, Jerome, if you are controlling the system, because I just want to give context to why we're bringing this matter here without opening up another discussion. Colleagues, can you do that quickly for us? Just to say, Chair, that the Rules Committee had indicated that the definitions still needed to be reviewed, and therefore that is why we're doing what we're doing today. So if you can go to page 10, please.
Mr. Busa, if you could just go up one page, that's where it starts. This is the end of there. That's perfect. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Chair, I think let me just speak to this. I wanted the ATC version that I sent to the committee, but apologies for that. If they can just go to the ATC version. But the point that we want to make, Chair, is that the House had agreed that these definitions, especially of the majority, and must still be discussed and finalized. So what we had in the House was not a final position on the matter. Hence, we've done what we have done today.
Sorry, Chair, I think let's get the ATC version with
Yes,
respect.
please.
Let's get the House resolution because and read it together.
It's okay, Ndlozi. It's okay, Ndlozi. While they are looking for the House resolution, Mr. Tasso, in the meantime, can then address us. Thank you.
Yeah, they will get it now. If colleagues, you could please do that for me. I send it to Perrin and Jerome. Do it quickly so that we don't delay the meeting. I want to see if I can read it from here.
Chair,
Mr.
please
Councillor,
exercise some patience with opposition.
Sorry, Mr. Councillor, this is the ATC version. This is the ATC you're looking at now. Thanks.
All right. So it says here that this definition was
This is the
taken.
ATC document.
Yes.
Is this the ATC document, Mr. Tasso?
They say it is, ma'am. Therefore, I believe them. I sent them the ATC. Looks somewhat different, but I don't think it would have changed.
Okay, can I give you 3 minutes to get that document so that we don't go
Sorry,
backwards and forth? Yes.
Sorry, Chairperson, this is the ATC. If you go up, so Mr. Busa is controlling the slides. If you go up to the top, just go to the first page of the documents, page 1.
Yeah.
Go to page 1. Then you'll see that's
Oh,
the ATC.
yes.
No, thank you so
Just
much.
the way
Yes.
it looks on
You
the
may
screen.
proceed, Mr. Kaso.
Thank you so much. So to go back to then to the
Sorry,
page.
Chair, I'm sorry can you also email it in the meantime in the group, in the same email that convened this meeting, so that we are able to read it without the screen assistance?
Yes.
We'll do that.
Okay, you can do that. In the meantime, you may proceed, Mr. Kaso.
All right. So the bottom of page 9 says that the Rules Committee therefore agreed to the following definitions. Go to page 10. Leader of the opposition means the leader of the largest party in the assembly that is not in the executive. That's what we have affirmed today. And then opposition means any party that is not represented in the national executive. This definition was taken as a working definition for the time being. And then chief whip, the definition of chief whip would be adjusted to take into account the different categories of largest, second largest, and opposition parties. These definitions will be finalized in the overall amendment of the identified aspects of the rules. So, Chair, that is why we're discussing this thing today. And we are proposing to this committee that this matter now needs to be finalized. And we thought it was useful to bring in the background that we did, so that as you finalize this position, we all understand what obtains in terms of what the Constitution says, in terms of what the other laws say on the matter. Thank you, ma'am. Parent, do you want to add anything?
No, so just to say that we're trying to email the documents to all the members on the mailing lists presently. Thanks.
Please scroll down. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaso, for that clarity. Honorable Ndlozi, you have already have your bite. Then what I want to say, honorable members, is that the rules of the National Assembly are working documents. They will always be reviewed. They will always be amended at all given times. And the rules of the National Assembly are always in line with the Constitution. We don't do anything outside the Constitution, because if we try to do that, there will be some court challenges with regard to the rules. Hence, everything we align it with the Constitution, and rules will always be amended based on the situation that we would find ourselves in. So, honorable members, are there other members who would want to take a bite? Indeed, Honorable Ndlozi, you did mention that we dealt with these definitions earlier, and it went to the House, it was adopted. So the real reason for bringing it, Mr. Kaso has already clarified to us. Are there other takers on this matter? Honorable Ghana?
Yep.
Honorable Ghana, followed by Honorable Mashaule and Honorable Mine.
Thanks very much, Chair. And I thought this was going to be one of those simple items, because it was meant to conclude the work that we'll have done before when we went to the House. And it's more, if we need to take it as a cleaning up the definitions. That's the exercise that we're involved in. The position of the chief whip of the largest party, the chief whip of the second largest party, and the chief whip of the opposition. Those positions have been accepted by the House as per the ATC. What our role is to then almost clean up the definition as you see there. That's why I had not initially raised my hand, because the proposal that was placed in the document that we received for today's meeting. I think it's a good definition that we should then insert, because the positions have been agreed to. Now our role is to then clean up that those definitions. Therefore, I thus move. So these are the three definitions effectively that just needed to be cleaned up properly, so that they sit in the rules. And I so move that the three definitions are correct, and from my side at least, they are correct, and we can take it to the Rules Committee. That will be my proposal. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Ghana. Honorable Mashaule.
Thank you very much, Chair, and greetings to everybody on the call. My network was not good, but I had some of the issues that were raised, and it became unstable at the time. Honorable Ndlozi was not sure why the items were here. I really felt what he was feeling, because I also didn't know why this item is back here when we have adopted it in the National Assembly. However, when it's explained that we're cleaning it, maybe we should be firm now to say we accept it the way we accepted it then, in terms of the definitions of the chief whip of the largest party, second largest party, and opposition. But bringing these things every now and then when it's not necessary and they are adopted before causes some unfortunate situation where those who are not there will think that we are discussing this thing for the first time and come with new things that they think where we are, we have outsourced the thinking. We did not think properly to arrive where we are. And it becomes unfortunate, because listening to things that were rehearsed a number of times sometimes gets disturbing when it comes from somebody who thinks the collective does not have a thinking capacity to get where they are. So I'm just pleading with you, Mr. Kaso, that when things are not firm, ask us before we conclude the meeting up, and not bring things every now and then that have been resolved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mashaule. Honorable Mani.
Yeah, thank you, Chairperson. I think pretty much agree also for the first time with Honorable Mashaule that if there was a application of thought and all of that when this was done, and the House with an authority to make a decision has made a decision, I think maybe then what this committee should do then is just to accept the decision of the House. Because if you bring it up here, you can't bring anything here and then expect that we're not going to unravel things and start to ask what exactly is the purpose of the second largest party. Maybe that discussion was had and was concluded in one way or the other. So why are you bringing it here? What do you want us to do? So I think whatever the House decided, whatever the House signed on, let's not try and do some, some shenanigan to try and squeeze in something. If you lost an argument, try to recover from whatever argument you lost. Whatever is there, I'd be happy to say whatever the House had signed on then, let's just go with that. If you are going to start to want to recover from a lost argument, then we are going to unravel the whole thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Manye, for agreeing again with, for the first time, with Honorable Mashaule. Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks, Chair. No, I now understand and thanks very much for having provided that background. What I would say is from the document, so I won't canvass the definition of opposition, of majority party. That one is clear. In an instance where there is no majority party, the largest party, we have canvassed all those grounds. It seems to me the last thing that we need to do is minority party. And I have the following questions. And if you take into consideration what I said earlier, that even in the rules as they are now, and even in the Constitution, you can go read, there are 4 instances in which the terminology minority party appears. The idea there is, if there is like a party that has 2 people, 4 people, it must, the parliament is enforced by the Constitution to make provisions that it participates, and it says in a manner consistent with democracy. So how Parliament resolved that in this instance, for the composition of committees, programming committee, rules committee, there are rules for the composition of those things, which they've put here. And maybe I'm saying this background so that honorable members maybe can also appreciate what Xaso and them are trying to drive us to. As well as, I think, the allocation of I don't know, maybe speaking time or question and answer session, those things. So I'm saying, so what would be the problem if we left it undefined, this minority party? Because once you say minority parties, or minority party means parties that are not the majority, it won't help you resolve those things of composition and all of that. Leave it like that, first option. And we all understand that we mean those small parties that must get a collective whip. And they must sit and then say, this is our whip, or this is our representative in this committee, this is our representative in that committee, this is our representative in that committee. They don't get an allocation in terms of resource, so to speak, of an actual whip. That's the first option. You don't define it. But if you insist on defining it, perhaps tell us in this instance, how do you take that decision? I'm not sure the system, the proper way, system that you use, but it means those parties that minority will mean small parties whose size in the National Assembly is not more than 1% or 2%. I don't know, something like that. But it depends on what you already have at the moment. How did you decide the small parties that get a collective representative in the rules committee? That is the definition, not the opposite of majority party. I don't know if it makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, I'll have to write it down, but I'll leave it to Xaso for now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ndlozi, for your input. Honorable Korenov.
Chairperson and members on the platform, I thought we were close to an agreement, and now we're starting to drift again. Can I suggest that we ask Mr. Kasu and Mr. Handik just to respond to the inputs, and just to conclude their presentation of where Mr. Handik stopped on the update to the rules. There's also references in the rules on the issues that are being raised now. So I move that we just conclude on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Korenov. Mr. Xaso?
I'll let Perrin go first, ma'am. Thank you. Perrin.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, if the controller could just go to the end of this brief of the report, the last, I think it's 2 pages, go one down, further. So you'll see what we've done there is, in terms of the terms we're talking about, the chief whip of the majority party, minority parties, opposition parties, etc. We have collated all the rules that apply to each of these different terms. So it's possible then to cross-reference and see, okay, so this is, if we define minority party in this way, these are the rules that will be impacted on. But Chair, what I would suggest perhaps is that it seems that there's still need for discussion on some of these technicalities on a more conceptual level, I think. So it may be that this committee could note this report, in other words, not necessarily endorse it as such, that it could go to the NARC, even if it is on the understanding that parties will still confer and discuss. So that is one possibility, given the concerns I think that are arising from this. Thanks.
Mr. Person?
Thank you, ma'am. Just maybe to take it further, I would say that the matters that are settled already, like chief whip of majority or chief whip of the largest party and second largest opposition party, those go to the Rules Committee for affirmation, and we don't go back to them. The one issue that we may have to just do some more work on is minority parties. As you see, this Rule 132.2 speaks of members of each party entitled to make a number of statements, minority parties being given an opportunity to participate in a manner consistent with democracy. Now, if you also go to the remuneration of public office bearers, I think it speaks of the leader of the largest minority party. If it's in this document, I'm not sure if it is here. Leader of the largest minority party in the NA. Let me see. Okay, yeah. So I think there are a lot of references either in the rules or possibly in legislation, but certainly in the determinations of the remuneration of public office bearers that make reference to minority parties. So I think, Chair, to conclude my point, the matters that have been agreed to settled, we proceed with those. And we welcome the inputs by Honorable Lozi. We'll look into those, but we do need to find a solution to some of the references. In respect of what we refer to as, we used to refer to them as smaller parties, but there was a view that we must refer to them as other parties. So those are the parties that would not qualify. For instance, if you take the formula used for allocation of whips, I think it goes up to the Patriotic Alliance, if I'm not mistaken. And then the parties below 9, in terms of their representation in the NA, they are grouped together and they are referred to as other parties. And they are given a whip, 3 whips, in fact, to take care of their
below
business.
what? Sorry, you said below what? Sorry, Chair, I'm sorry.
I think it's below 9. My colleagues can correct me if I'm wrong. I think Patriotic
Below
Alliance.
9 what? 9 members.
9 members. 9 members.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
Below 9 members in the NA. So if 6 downwards, they are grouped together and they constitute the other parties in terms of the formulas. But I can give the specifics there. I may be missing 1 or 2 issues, but that is the principle that is applied at the moment. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kaso, honorable members. I think there's consensus. Honorable Ndozi, your hand is really intimidating me. Do you want to come
You're
back
not
and
getting
do what?
intimidated by me. It's new.
You keep on raising your hand.
Uh,
Okay.
If you give me, I'll
Honorable,
speak. If you don't want, it's fine.
Honorable Ndlozi, I think I gave you enough time to ventilate on these matters, and we are all in agreement of the other definitions, the way it was adopted by the House. So now the issue here is that one of defining the minority or the smaller parties, other parties, minority. So we will then put that aside so that we you further, Mr. Tasso, and your team further try to process this, and members are allowed to make their submissions based on this, on the concept of minority and majority. Minority, yes. That is where we are not, the questions are being asked with regard to minority. Honorable Ndlozi, I am giving you 3 minutes.
No, I need less, Chair. Thank you
Okay.
very much with the summary. I'm very happy with it. What I'd like to request to Castle is what the chairperson summary is what this document should say. It's not saying that at the moment. It should say there's agreement on majority, largest party, opposition, blah, blah, blah. And we are going to discuss minority. And then do a separate document on minority. And please send us the documents you're speaking about, those things of 9 MPs, those things where minority is important. Because in the Constitution, it's exactly, you have literally just transferred that sentence from the Constitution to here. And that's what it says in the rules as well. So if we can also be serviced with that. If there is an opportunity, Chairperson, to get a proposal of minority before the next rules committee, you'll see will agree. I would say that let's try that by all means. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlozi. Indeed, we can make submissions to the NA table with regard to that, honorable members, if it can go to them not later than Monday, so that they, when we go to the rules committee, they do have the proposals as to how to frame it. Thank you very much, honorable members. Can we now move on to the next item?
Thank you, Chair. The next item, I can just
Government undertakings and petitions.
Yes, that's correct. Thank you. If we could go to the briefing documents, the briefing documents, the main document that we used at the beginning, the cross references. Thanks. So, Chair, I just want to wait till it's up. It should be very shortly. Thanks. If you could go to page 4, please. Thanks. That's perfect. Thank you so much. So, just again, as briefly as I can, members will of course know that the Assembly is constitutionally obligated to provide mechanisms to ensure that members of the executive are accountable, and it does this in all variety of ways in the House and obviously in committees. Members will be aware that at present there is no mechanism by which members can monitor government undertakings made from the floor of the House. So these are promises that the executive or ministers and deputy ministers make from the floor. It can be either in question time, often the case when a minister will say, I will get back to the member on this point. It can be in a debate where a minister will say, I will supply Parliament with this information. So those are promises made, and there's no mechanism by which the House tracks those issues. And then in the case of petitions as well, we do have rules governing how Parliament processes petitions. Currently, they're referred to portfolio committees, but there are concerns, and there have been concerns for some time, that the way portfolio committees deal with petitions is varied. And I think it would be fair to say that sometimes they're not dealt with, or they're not given a priority, so they can sit in the system for quite some time. So what we are suggesting is that to address both of these elements, a proposal has been put forward that the rules establish a special committee, a committee on government undertakings and petitions. So that is this committee, and I'll explain briefly in a moment how it would work, would have both those functions. So we have prepared draft rules which are on the screen, and you'll see the draft rules for the functions and powers of this committee. We've also developed, so maybe I should just also mention that we did look at some other parliaments which have very similar structures. The NCP itself, as a sister house, also has such a committee, and they have very extensive procedures as well, which we have obviously looked at when we're coming to these proposals. We've also developed, you'll see there, Rule 252C2 talks about guidelines for this committee. And if we could perhaps just flight the guidelines, they've also been circulated. It's Annex E. I'll speak maybe while those are being put up. So the guidelines are meant to provide, obviously within the framework of the rules, for two elements. Firstly, they allow this committee to decide from time to time which parliamentary proceedings should be prioritized in respect of government undertakings. So I've mentioned that question time, for example, is probably the most obvious example where ministers make promises to the House. But they can also do that in other forums. So the idea is that this committee will decide initially, as a first step, we're going to try and look at question time. We're going to look at member statements initially. And then from there, grow into a space where, in fact, it can track all the proceedings of the House in respect of these proceedings. So that is the idea of the guideline, that the committee can evolve in a measured but effective way. The second provision in the guidelines is related to the requirements the committee, in following up with the executive, in the case of a government undertaking, should in fact try and involve other committees. So where a minister said that he's going to supply the member of the Defence Committee with a report I'm just making obviously this example. That member, the Portfolio Committee on Defence, would obviously have an interest in that undertaking. So this committee, although it would be mandated to follow up, it would also be required at certain points to liaise with either the member concerned or potentially a committee as well. So that's why you'll see, for example, in the rules, we can stay on the guidelines for now, but this committee must report at least, and it should report more frequently, but it must report at least once a year to the House on its work in respect of government undertakings, with the intention that other committees will draw on that information. But as I said, it should report more frequently, but that's just a minimum requirement. So the intention is to try and involve other structures as well, so that you don't get a silo situation where committees are doing the same thing or so on. So in terms of petitions, that's the other function of this committee. We already have rules, we already have guidelines on petitions, but that they really, in effect, concern the moment petitions are referred to Portfolio Committee. So we're saying again that now these petitions should be referred to this committee within the context of the existing rules and guidelines. So what we have up to now doesn't need to change. This just is a mechanism to streamline petitions as well. And again, when necessary, we're saying that this committee must, if the petition is dealing with a defence matter, must liaise with the Defence Committee, so that again, you find Parliament is working in a coherent way. Thank you, Chair. I hope that makes sense, Mr. Castro. I don't know if you want to add. Thank you.
Nothing to add, Chair. Thank you.
Honorable members, that is the presentation by the NA table. Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks, Chairperson. Yeah, I'm happy with the proposal, really. This is very good. I wanted to request where we say government, let us try to use executive, which is a constitutional term. Because, for instance, if the petition is addressed to the president, according to this new provision, is that, for instance, 5BI or 5B1, Roman figure 1, invite the relevant department or agency. Aibo.
Collins, put it back on the screen,
Don't
please.
remove it. Thank you.
Apologies, we'll go back there immediately. Thanks, sorry.
You're sabotaging me. Yeah, so it says government department or agency would invite the relevant member of the executive or agency to respond. Instead of government, let's use the terminology of executive. I assume that people do that. They come there, they submit a petition addressed to the President of South Africa and all of that. I think that will be majority of the petitions in any way. So the president must be able to go to the petitions committee and explain this or that, or the petitions committee must be able to say, in your next opportunity, when you deal with the questions, can you deal with this petition, or whatever the case might be. But as things are standing now, you would have to use a broader term to include the president, which is national executive. That's all I have to say for now. But otherwise, I think this is a good step forward. We've been asking for it for some time now. So I would request honorable members that let's adopt it and establish this committee ASAP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ndlozi. Honorable Kana.
Thanks, Chair. And I'm so generally agreed with the committee. And I was trying to think in terms of let's call it's not much. You've got, say, you've got separate votes, for instance, for Stats SA and the Office of Chief Justice, which it's not like it's not a government department per se, but it's a separate vote, and it's not much of an agency. I don't know. So I'm trying to think, and Rosie, what will be an all-encompassing terminology that takes into account that it might be a petition against, say, the Office of the Chief Justice or Stats SA, which is not so much of a government department, but it's not also insofar as the member of the national executive. What will be the correct terminology? Because even government department, it doesn't, like Stats SA is not a government department. But how do we then find the terminology? And I've been, when I was looking at it, to say there might be other votes. Let me rather use the votes rather than the department, because I said they are not departments. I think we might need to find the right terminology, but the essence of it, I understand it. It's just the terminology on that on that one. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kana. Honorable Kurenov.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's a new initiative in the National Assembly, this petitions and the what we arrange around it. It's working well in the NCOP. So we're setting our foot on a new path here, which needs to be welcomed. And as far as the consideration of the petitions are concerned, I propose that we accept as proposed here. In considering the petition, the committee, portfolio committee or the standing committee, might then invite the department or the agency, or invite further comments from the petitioner or from the public on the petition, and hold public hearings. So it's a process that will evolve itself and develop itself. So my proposal is that we accept the proposal as it stands at the moment. And by the way, the president is not a member of parliament. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Kurenov. What I'm taking here before I go to Mr. Kraso is that there is an agreement in this meeting for the establishment of that petitions committee. We do have it in the National Council of Provinces, so to establish it in the National Assembly as well. So, Mr. Kraso, any comment?
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to say that on point 5, be.
Sorry, Chair, before Caso comes in, if you can allow me to, so that I don't come back after Caso, with your indulgence.
2 minutes.
Yeah, I would, my request is use the terminology of organ of state, which is in the Constitution chapter on cooperative government. So a relevant organ of state, which is all, it's like an all-encompassing terminology, because the judiciary, the executive, parliament, departments, and SOEs, and all of that is part of the state. That would be my proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ndlozi. Mr. Taso, you were on the floor.
Yes, Chair, I will consider that. What I was going to say was that you could do with that sentence, without government, you can say invite the relevant department or agency, but we'll take what Honorable Ndlozi into account. We may have to take care of this concern in the definitions, but we don't want to make the change now. We'll consider that, and by the time we go to the Rules Committee, we will have taken that into account, Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Mr. Taso. We are indeed in agreement of the establishment of this committee with, of course, what is being proposed. You'll look into it. Then if you find it suitable to be used as advised, then you'll then take it to the Rules Committee. Honorable members, can we now move on to the next item? Item number 9, oversight over the presidency. Thank you very much, Mr. Taso and your team.
Thank you, Chair. I would ask the colleagues to take us to the main document, page 5.9. Yes. Chair, members would have gone through this, but we just want to state again that the Rules Committee decided that a study tour be undertaken to the UK, and that study tour was undertaken. It came back and it said the following under the recommendations, that while our Parliament has comprehensive procedures to facilitate oversight and accountability, there could be features in the rules and practices that could be enriched, and that we should remain proactive and open to reforms to support our systems and practices. And that in the case of oversight over the presidency, the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation be mandated to scrutinize the budget and spending of the vote on the presidency. And again, when the Rules Committee met, beginning of this term, it reflected on this matter, and the issue was referred to this committee to explore. So what we have here, Chair, is the recommendation that came from the study tour to say that the monitoring and evaluation committee be identified for this purpose. And therefore, if it is agreed that we go the route of that committee, we propose that the following resolution could be adopted. And I think A and B basically repeat what I first said of that resolution. And 2A, I think this is important, where the Speaker would then assign those aspects of the budget vote and operations of the presidency that are not scrutinized by other committees to the Portfolio Committee on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and the Leader of Government Business to inform the Speaker in writing of the minister or member of the executive delegated to account for the administration of the presidency. We are placing this, Chair, for consideration by this committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. Here is Mr. Taso, here is the submission by the NA table. I see the hand of Honorable Ndlozi. The platform is yours, Honorable Ndlozi.
Okay, thanks, Chairperson. Well, we totally disagree with this matter being dealt with this way, because it's basically what is the status quo. From the beginning, the problem related to the fact that you've got a division of revenue called into being through budget vote 1. How then do you constitute the expenditure items in light of the constitutional prerogative of Parliament to hold the executive accountable? How do you deal with those items? Where are those budgets? Where is that money being used? Where is Parliament exercising oversight over that particular? And it is not the minister that is spending that money of monitoring and evaluation. It is the president. If you go to those items, it's a whole set of programs that those minister of monitoring and evaluation has nothing to say about them. Your AIDS council, now there is even a bill. So between the president and deputy president, if the sensitivity here is about the president, I don't know, but our point is that there must be a portfolio committee. That is what we've been saying since the last term, not this. And I did try on Wednesday, which is basically now almost, what time is it? Okay, almost 48 hours ago. I tried to say, when we make proposals and the table staff comes back, it must speak to all of us. So you should have put that proposal as well in writing, because it has been made that first proposal is this one. I don't know who made this proposal. Maybe it's yourselves, Handik. But what has been on this committee from time to time is there must be a separate portfolio committee on budget vote 1 on the presidency, in which either the president or the president appears, so that a BRRR can be considered, as well as a division of revenue accountability process on budget vote 1. And I'm saying that in addition, if you check in the presidency now, it's SOEs, it's those bodies that were always there, but also now there is a bill about all SOEs having a holding company. It is sponsored by the president, that bill, not the Minister of Planning and Evaluation. The Minister of Planning and Evaluation is doing stats essay and brand essay. Here we're dealing with items related to budget vote 1. This proposal is inadequate. So even if you defeat us with your numbers, comrades, but put the proposal in writing. Let's go to the Rules Committee, because there were 2 proposals from the beginning. So I disagree completely with this one. One, the special portfolio committee called that is going to exercise oversight on the presidency in relation to budget vote 1 and the division of revenue processes. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Ndlozi, for your inputs on this matter. I'll go to Honorable Mika Mashaule. Honorable Mashaule.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Whip. We are fully in support of the proposal that is put before us. And amongst other reasons why we are supporting it is that there seems to have been issues that were raised about the accountability of the presidency. And amongst other things, what came strong was that there are other operations of the presidency that are not scrutinized by other committees. You are well aware that the planning and monitoring and evaluation is scrutinizing some of the activities in the presidency. The Department of Women, Youth and People with Disabilities, on the other hand, there is scrutiny there. So the missing point is operations that are deemed to be necessary to be known by the public, but are not scrutinized by any committee. And with this proposal at A, that says the speaker must assign those aspects of the budget vote and operations of the presidency that are not scrutinized by other committees, closes that gap. Because the obsession with a standalone committee, it can be a standing alone committee, but still does the same issue that we are trying to close a gap on with this clause that the table staff is proposing. And President not being a member of the parliament, there is a deputy president and other ministers. And when it comes to accountability and responsibilities in the constitution, it does say members of cabinet are accountable collectively and individually to parliament for the exercise of their powers and performance of their functions. So we should not choose and pick what we want to see. There is accountability from the presidency. And if there are certain issues that we think are not covered, and we want them to be covered, here is a clause that is closing the gap. So we fully support this initiative by the table staff, and we support the proposal, Chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Mashaule. Honorable Ghana. Honorable Ghana.
Thank you very much, Chair. My hands move a bit slower to get to the unmute button. So I think so. The proposal, as it stands now, it's a move in the right direction. What I would maybe suggest, whether it forms part of the resolution or outside. So understanding where Mr. Kaso starts with the oversight that was taken to the UK that came with recommendations. It's maybe find expression that there has to be an let's say an ongoing or some kind of a space to potentially review. I'm not saying we'll definitely review, but to see whether this, because it might very well be, if you look at 2B, that the minister that is designated by the leader of government business, maybe in how they then articulate on the issues relating to the aspects of vote 1, it's not effective enough. Like give ourselves a room to, as we always do, like you said, Chair, that these rules are subject to review, but also this particular one that it's if it's not working appropriately, we could review it even within the 7th Parliament, to say that this is not something that will only be reviewed going into the 8th Parliament, but we can review it during this 7th Parliament. So we give this a try. Let's see how it works. And then if maybe there are areas where we can tweak and so forth, we can do that. I think it will also help, not necessarily for this committee, but also as part of the consultations on or before the assignment of those functions for the, whether it's handled in the Chief Whip's forum or it's handled in one of the forums where political parties are, to look at the functions to ensure that they are covered, like the functions that 2A speaks to before the full implementation. But I think in the short term, this is it's moving us in the right direction, and I think we will get there. I think maybe if at least for me, it will not be a desire to say that the president ought to appear before a portfolio committee. At least for me, it will not be the essence of what holding the executive to account necessarily means that the president must appear before a portfolio committee. That's my submission. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ghana. Honorable Manyi.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think the concept of collective responsibility is a rhetoric. Only yesterday, Minister Nzimande did not want to accept that responsibility of collective responsibility. So people just throw this term around, but the executive has got no respect for that thing called collective responsibility. For instance, in this committee, chairperson, the PME, I have served in this committee. I know the issues much more intricately in this committee. And I don't think this formulation here would cover that. For instance, just to give you a practical example, if you look at the issue of the evaluation of ministers, as it were, you ask Minister Marupini to say, okay, share with us how a minister's performance managed, what are the ratings, etc., etc. Just so that as public representatives, we know that ministers are being rated, etc. And then this is now the specific preserve of the president and so on, and she can't move on that. It's this and a few other things, because the issue here is that the president, strictly speaking, which is also in the Constitution, is the executive authority. And others are basically assisting him to execute that function. But the president has not devolved all his powers to the various ministers. So this thing is very murky as it currently stands. There will be all other things that, I think what perhaps should have happened here, maybe we should pen this for now and get more information that what is envisaged in this, so that we see in the shopping list that everything that is done in that budget vote one, that everything that is there is accounted for in the Minister Marupini area or Minister Nchaveni area and all of that. Then we know that we're covered, then there are no gaps. To say that let's just move with this for now, it's just like, it's a problem. You don't know what you've got. So and the situation that we've been exposed to, especially with the ANC-DA coalition, we cannot trust anything that is not properly explained. So I think our view is that if we are to consider this, then all the information must be put on the table. Give us a list of the activities which you know yourselves are not scrutinized, so that when we agree to this, we know what we're agreeing to. Because right now, we agree to this, and then it still happens that there are some gaps that are not covered, and we don't know what those gaps are, because this thing is worded in the most political way. It's got all kinds of escape clauses, reading it even as it stands. So Chair, I'm saying, give us adequate information so that we can make a clear decision. Right now, you've just given us a screensaver. We don't want a screensaver, we want the entire thing. Give us this, even is on the side, that when you say those aspects, and then you put an asterisk, and then you put a list of those aspects, then we know what we're dealing with. But right now, you just want us to agree to a screensaver. I would not approve the screensaver, so we reject the screensaver. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Honorable Manyi, for your screensaver. I just want to remind you, you keep on using this term, ANC-DA coalition. There's no such. We have a government of national unity led by the ANC. That is
We
the
can call
government
that-
of national unity,
Aye, man, comrades, point of
made
order.
up
Let's
of
leave
10
those things.
people, 10 parties.
Chairperson.
Honorable
Leave-
Korenov.
Thank you, Chairperson. Just a few remarks. One, I think we must recognize that there are various departments in the presidency that account to portfolio committees in Parliament. It's a DPME, it's a Women, Youth and Persons with a Disability, it's State Security, it's a National Planning Commission, and there are others. That's the first point I want to make. The second one is that there is a comprehensive debate on vote 1 for 2 days, if I remember correctly. It may be 3 with a reply included, but there's a comprehensive debate on budget vote 1. Then thirdly, this study tour that the 6th Parliament undertook, that was quite a comprehensive report that they submitted. It was to the UK, United Kingdom. Now, the United Kingdom doesn't have a president, but they did undertake the tour and they came with recommendations to say the 7th Parliament must further look into it. So it always worried me that we shouldn't make a decision on a study tour that was taken only to one Western country, a European country. And maybe we can think of to recommend that the Rules Committee may make a recommendation to undertake a further comprehensive comparative study, which may also include countries on the African continent that have and other jurisdictions with a similar parliamentary system, rather than only relying on a European country situation. So, and lastly, looking at the resolution with my comments here, I want to make a proposal with we support this resolution and that we agree to it in recommending to the Rules Committee to make the final decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Korenov. Honorable Dagmo.
Chairperson, greetings also to everyone on the platform. I think a number of the speakers have covered me, so I just want to firstly indicate support for the resolution as it is captured here. I think that both the speaker assigning these aspects of the budget vote will assist, and I think it's also critical that the leader of government business informs the speaker in writing in time, because obviously we need the BRRR reports that cover, all aspects of vote 1, and that those reports need to come through to comply with the national legislation with regard to deadlines, say in this process of the medium-term budget statement and the adjustment. And I don't want. I'm sure we are all going to have this particular debate in the Rules Committee and even in Parliament, but I must just put it very clearly that the mechanisms which currently exist clearly provide for a number of levels of oversight. I think this is a solution which assists us, especially to get clarity now for the duration of the 7th Parliament. And I would also support what Honourable Korenov has proposed, that I do think, we shouldn't just leave this issue at this is what we'll do for the 7th Parliament. Let's go and actually have a look at a number of countries on the continent, maybe some countries in the East, and just look at any other lessons that can inform us. But for now, for the duration of the 7th Parliament, this gives clarity, and at least we know where that accountability will lie. And it's clear to me that there's no attempt to escape accountability. It actually enhances it. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dagmo. Honorable Lusizo Makubela.
Thank you, Chair. Let me support the the proposal as is, Chairperson, and indicate that I am in full support of one statement by Honorable Ghana, which states that it's not ideal. We don't want a situation where we would want to bring the president to a portfolio committee. So that one is out. But in the spirit of wanting accountability, the mechanisms that Parliament has for now are sufficient. In every quarter, the president does come to answer questions to Parliament. The various departments that are housed in the presidency are reporting direct to portfolio committees. And for now, Honorable Chair, I believe the systems that we have are sufficient for accountability. However, I want to support the proposals that says, let's expand our scope in determining the parliaments that have a portfolio committee that looks into the presidency, and see whether we can be able to work on something that brings in sufficient studied practices, either than just wanting to have a portfolio committee for the presidency. The proposal is sufficient, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Lusizo. Honorable Mahlaule.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Whip. You know, I want to make this point, Deputy Chief Whip, that when we debate here about which route to take, we do it on the basis of that we want Parliament to be empowered to discharge its oversight responsibilities effectively. That is why some of us, when we differ with the likes of Honorable Ndlozi, we do make an appreciation of where he's coming from, and we listen. And to get to a point where you differ with the submission, you have appreciated what he's trying to push. Hey, but others, it's difficult to really appreciate what they are saying, because things that are said are very shocking. Let me give you an example. You can't, when it suits you, say the very same constitution that says the president is an executive authority. You appreciate it there. But it's said by the same constitution that you are saying is a rhetorical constitution. Clause 192 is rhetorical. I mean, you make some of us lose appreciation that you are bringing a point that we must appreciate in the better, to better the work that we are doing for Parliament. Now, if Honorable Manye has a problem with how ministers are behaving towards the Constitution, it's another issue that we must deal with. But we can appreciate the Constitution at one level, and at the other level, we don't appreciate it. But we want to be guided by the very same Constitution that we appreciate selectively. It becomes very difficult. Same goes for what you were raising, Deputy Chair, and I heard Honorable Ndlozi was calling in order. Once you diagnose a situation under a coalition government, we are not going to help you here because there's no coalition government here. We are dealing with GNU. Once you don't appreciate that, you will speak out of 10 every day, and you think we don't appreciate your views when you speak about them. It's not given that we must agree, but at least make us appreciate that you are going towards a direction to help Parliament to discharge its own responsibility. I mean, you can't say when it suits you, this is a screenshot issue. When we have been receiving presentations and appreciated that the table staff is giving us presentation. Now you want to ridicule it and call it a screenshot. It's really difficult to appreciate some of the submissions that are made here and go towards a conclusion that assists Parliament to discharge its responsibilities. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Masaule. Honorable Mani.
Thank you, Chair. Firstly, let me make it clear that there's a difference between a screensaver and a screenshot. So I understand Mr. Mahlaule's response to this. If his understanding is that a screensaver and a screenshot are one and the same thing. Very two different things. The issue here, Chairperson, is a very simple one. There's an acid test to this, and the acid test that we must put here is whether of the 100% power and authority that the president has, how much of it has it devolved? Has it devolved to his ministers in the presidency? And if the answer is he has devolved 100% of it, then I'm covered. But if the answer is that no, there are certain things that he has held back, but he's spending money on, but those are things that are still only under the guidance and the leadership of the president, then he must come and account. I think that is the essence of the issue here. So what we're being told here is indeed a screensaver, Chairperson. So just so that I'm not ambiguous, I'm very clear that because my understanding is that the president has not devolved all his powers, and therefore these ministers are still never going to be able to account for every cent that is happening there. We therefore reject this proposal. And we reject it. We want a very clear standing portfolio committee that is going to deal precisely with the areas which are the sole preserve of the president. In fact, the various ministers that have been listed here are already exercising those powers. The problem that we have are the other things that have not been devolved into them. I gave an example, for instance, of monitoring and evaluation, or the performance monitoring and evaluation of ministers that are not in one of these ministers. I don't know whatever else will now the president decide to rush into these ministers so that they can make Parliament happy. We don't want to be made happy. If the president if either the president devolves all his powers to the ministers, then we know that we're dealing with the full thing. But I know sitting here that that is not the case. And therefore, we are saying the president himself must indeed account. And by the way, there's nothing peculiar about the president coming to account being not a member of Parliament. We call even private citizens to come and account in Parliament. So what is special about the president accounting? The president must come and account. And so we reject this proposal as it stands. The record must show. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mani. Honorable Ndlozi.
Thanks, Chairperson. Maybe we must address ourselves to the tension of Mika and Mzwanele. It's not necessary, comrades, to be marking each other like that. I'm just appealing that maybe we want to take a different approach, since at this level is about developing proposals and not get bogged down in the details of screenshots and screensavers.
Honorable Ndlozi, can you please make your presentation, please? Make your proposal so that we can move on.
That's fine, yeah. No, Chair, I want honorable members to appreciate the following. One, the question and answer session is a mechanism of parliament for every member of the executive. So it's not like special for the president. Everybody goes through question and answer sessions in the National Assembly. Second, the budget debate, Honorable Konoff thinks because the budget vote 1 is debated in the National Assembly for 2 days, it means there is no need for the processes of the division of revenue that other debates are subjected to. That budget vote 1 doesn't have to, simply because it's debated twice over a 2-day period. Again, this is wrong because budget debates are subject to every other budget. It's part of the division of revenue process outlined by the National Assembly. Now, you are going to get into a cul-de-sac when it comes to the budget recommendations and review report. Where would the BRRR process for budget vote 1 come from? You don't have it. It couldn't come from monitoring and evaluation because monitoring and evaluation is a ministry itself. It's a department. It has its own recommendations and reports as a portfolio committee. You've got programs in the presidency that are not given to any other portfolio committee that are done by the president, where state money is being spent. They need to be processed through a BRRR process and the General Division of Revenue process. They are not there, that he himself is engaged in. The minister in the monitoring and evaluation cannot speak to those programs. And they are there. I'll give you several examples. That minister is not responsible for the National AIDS Council, is not responsible for South Africa's Investment Conference, Presidential Climate Commission, Infrastructure South Africa, National Strategic Plan on GBV, Presidential Youth Employment Intervention, Operation Vulindlela. There's a lot. They are not responsible for the money spent in those programs. They will not be able to speak to us because they are not there. Is the truth. And then that minister as well is not the sponsor of the bill on state-owned companies being under one single holding company. They are not this, they will not be able to speak to that because they are not responsible for that. So let's be fair about what this argument is about. And if comrades can at least have some intellectual fidelity to what we are raising as from the beginning. In the past, it used to be all members of the opposition agreed on this. Now, my final point is the study tour. I completely reject that we must go somewhere in the world to do what the Constitution of South Africa asks us to do. We must develop mechanisms to hold the executive accountable. The president is the executive. There is nothing, absolutely nothing wrong with a portfolio committee in which the president appears to answer about the programs he's leading and where taxpayers' money is being used. And then him leading conversation about why does he want to establish a holding company for it. There's nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. Do not make him above the Constitution. Do not shield him from accountability. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, honorable members. I think we have exhausted this matter with our inputs. What I'm hearing from the different honorable members is that no one is saying there should be no accountability. We all saying that there should be accountability, of which we do have mechanisms in Parliament for the executive to account, of which the president is one of the executive members who are accounting in Parliament. Then there is this issue of saying in the budget, there are some aspects which are not covered. What we are getting here is a recommendation of which some members are agreeing with the recommendation. If I may take you back, there was a presentation by the budget office which led to the issue of members of the Chief Whips Forum embarking on that study tour. But what other members are saying here is that, yes, there was a study tour. It didn't come with a concrete evidence of how they are doing their oversight that we can take from. So let's embark on another research, be it desktop or another study tour to other African countries which have the same system as ours in South Africa. We know that our systems are not the same all over the world, but let's rather use what is being recommended now. Then while doing so, let's embark on another study tour, be it desktop or study tour, to other countries with the same systems that we are using in South Africa. Then we will come back and see how best we can do what we have to do as South Africa, as Parliament. But it doesn't mean that there is no accountability as we speak. There is accountability. No one is barred from asking any questions to the president, any question they want to ask. But in the meantime, the suggestion is that let's make use of what is before us. Let's support this president. If maybe those aspects can be clearly stipulated as to what are those aspects of budget that are not accounted for. So that is what he was saying. So with those two differing views, honorable members, I think they will be captured as such in our report to the Rules Committee. So I want us now to step off this item and move on to the last item of the day. Mr. Clason Perrin, can you please take us to the last item? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. I hope this will be a little bit more straightforward. This is really more of an update and by way of background. So in the last Parliament, the Rules Committee was working on draft rules to supplement the Money Bills and Related Matters Act to assist Parliament to implement the Act and obviously in its effectiveness in terms of budget matters. And it was quite far advanced at that point. There were draft rules. And it was then agreed that those draft rules should be sent to the respective standing committees on appropriations and finance, both in the NA and in the NCOP, because some of these procedures indirectly or directly affect the NCOP and even the provinces. So we did receive feedback from those stakeholders, but it was very late in the term, and then of course, the House adjourned for elections. So in the 7th Parliament, the matter was resuscitated in the Rules Committee, and we then felt that because these committees were new, standing committees, the members were new, it's a new Parliament, that they should be given a new opportunity to just look at the draft rules and raise any issues that they may have. So we're expecting feedback by the end of this month, by the end of October. So we would hope that the next meeting, if not at the Rules Committee, the subcommittee, that we will have any inputs they may make. But we are quite confident that if there are any changes, they won't be dramatic, and I think we will be able to proceed with it quite quickly. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Perrin. Mr. Paso, do you have some additions?
Yes, ma'am. Our commitment is to finalize this matter this year. We think that we need to get to a point where the NA or Parliament broadly can be in a position to amend the budget if it deems that appropriate. So we want to provide the rule infrastructure so that it's really up to the House how it utilizes that rules infrastructure. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tasso and Perrin, for that presentation. Honorable members, your take?
I agree with the
Chair.
recommendation, Chair.
We support.
Okay. Okay, there is support for the recommendation. Honorable Ndlozi.
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh, okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Tasso and Perrin, for that presentation on the issue of the money bills, of the rules for the Money Act. Everyone is agreeing with the proposals that you are putting before us. Honorable members, we have come to the end of our meeting, but I want to say this to the meeting. When we are in a committee meeting, honorable members, let's focus on what is before us, which is the business of that particular committee. Let's not bring in some things that are not really necessary. These portfolio committees are being followed by all South Africans. So we have young people who are also looking up to us as members of parliament as their role models. Let's make sure that we are civil to one another, and also we focus on the business of the day, not to bring things that are really not necessary. Let us be the honorable members who, the way we are supposed to. Our behavior, we must always behave in a manner that is appreciable by by everyone who's watching the program or who's listening to what we are saying. With those few words, let me take this opportunity for thanking you all for your inputs and also for attending this meeting, and to the NA table led by Mr. Tasso. We thank you for the work that you are doing. We really appreciate it. And for everyone who hosted us, everyone who is in the platform, thank you very much for being part of us. The meeting stands adjourned.
Thank you, Chairperson.
Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you,
Thank you,
honorable
Chair.
members.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.